Korean sun. That's why I was looking at you. Yeah,
It's good
very
to do
close
river
the sun.
detox beforehand.
Yes, good.
Yeah. When is
what,
that?
what was that? Wednesday.
Wednesday,
This coming
next
Wednesday?
week.
Wednesday, yeah. Full moon in Scorpio. 23 degrees is the full moon.
And what does it mean?
And
because
it's
mine
close
is
to your
ascendant.
ascendant.
Yeah, very close.
Yeah.
So what does it mean?
Reborn.
Come on, don't dilute it, please. Just
No,
tell me
I've
so
just
I
been
will-
talking about it. If you weren't messing around with your telephone, your
Oh, I'm
mobile
trying
phone,
to tell this person.
and paying attention, I won't have to repeat
Why would it
myself.
be good to do a liver detox?
Because anything hidden anger or
Yeah,
resentment
underworld.
might come
Oh,
up. But by
stores in the
cleansing the
underworld.
liver, you're
Oh,
releasing
it's coming
it.
out now. Oh,
Exactly.
okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
resentment,
Exactly.
bitterness.
Instead of
feeling
bottle up.
irritable,
Yeah.
Irritable,
Exactly.
yeah.
It's more like cleansing, anger cleansing by cleansing the physical liver.
Yeah,
So that's
exactly.
why.
See?
And you're
That's
going to be finished by it.
Is it her, in her sign?
It's
Yeah,
very
okay,
close
so
to her sun.
the end of
Because
Wednesday.
And the juice fast is on the
Yeah.
Obviously, that has a
Tuesday,
different
Wednesday it's
impact
coming
than the
up.
ascendant.
Yes, yes.
So
So
the
it
ascendant
affect
is
maybe
coming.
more the body.
I'm in tune.
Yes.
Ascendant relates a lot to body, health, and the way of engaging with the world. Whereas the sun goes more to personal
Ascendant.
identity.
Very
Yeah.
important, Suki.
So,
Very
yeah, ascendant
important,
is.
Suki. Ascendant.
Hmm.
I've still got your old chart. I don't know why I'm going to give you a chart.
I wonder what will happen.
Do you have your chart with you?
Would I throw my assistant out because I'm angry with her for not working properly?
Yes, it could
Yeah,
be.
judgment.
Yeah.
Yeah, Suki.
Yeah.
Satan. Yeah.
Could you have your chart though?
It's your phone again.
That's not my phone. Your brother. It
That's
doesn't
the
machine, I think.
Ubis's landline. You can't do much about.
So if it's close to somebody's sun,
Well, if it's close to anybody's planet or
Planet.
angle, it's going to have an impact. See, and Pluto.
Oh, you have.
not
something-
me, it's my children.
Yes, but you have.
Oh,
you,
yes, yes.
that's going to have your 10th house, isn't it? 20th.
Yes, so the Saturn is crossing your ascendant, which is
Oh, yeah, you
basically
said that, yeah.
not tolerating any, you know,
Backstabbing thing.
Nonsense.
nonsense. Not taking. You know, even this thing of the interesting, Saturn relates to doors. You see, so this thing of
See, I'm
someone
not going to do it
closing a
now.
door.
I'll be selfish. Forget about it.
Yeah,
Yeah, I saw them entering.
yeah. So someone's closing a door and not opening a door. That's such a Saturn thing.
Isn't it?
So Saturn,
I
and
was so angry.
and the front door relates to the ascendant. See.
Mm.
So if
You
you have issues
enter.
with your front door, it's always the ascendant. You know, it's that ascendant because the ascendant is the front door into your world. You see, where the outside world enters your world, and where you leave your world and enter the outside world, it all comes in and out through the ascendant. So it's like a front door.
And then the Saturn might be a key, isn't it?
The Saturn is like the bouncer, the gatekeeper,
Yeah, bouncer, gatekeeper.
you know, and the block, you know,
Mm.
preventing you getting into the door or preventing other people. So this is about being, you know, very firm about who you let into your house and who you let into your energy, and saying no. You know, Saturn is it's like putting a door in someone's face.
Yeah.
But that, if it's done with a good intention in the right way, it can be very healthy for both you and the other person. If they're
Yeah.
taking advantage, for example.
Yeah.
So, and this full moon is culminating a lot of that process. Being very firm about your boundaries. Whereas the sun, not so much boundaries. It's more being wronged and abused and.
I'm doing this is the first time I'm really surprised. Actually, first time in my life, I cannot be bothered with my children's charts. I just put them away. I
Yeah.
cannot be bothered to make peace or grieve or anything. Just get out of my life. You know, it's almost like that's why I don't. I just check my chart. I mean, just don't leave myself. Thank you very much. I can't.
Because it's good to be like this for now, especially with all your cancer. It's always the kids. And you'll go back to the kids,
Oh,
you know.
no.
It's just a temporary phase, but
Oh, that's
it's an
very
important
phase,
temporary
yeah.
phase.
Yeah.
So not feel, bad
Yeah.
about it.
Oh no, I don't feel. I feel good. Thank
Good.
God, first time.
Good.
This
Yes.
is how most
Good.
people feel. I was mad the way I was.
Great. So I'll just hang on to this and I'll throw this chart away. Confuses
I
me.
think I really need a cup of tea. I haven't had time to. I'll be back in a minute.
Okay.
I haven't had time to have tea today.
Oh yeah, that's Suki. Good. So next class, I know.
I won't be here on a Saturday because the solstice, summer solstice.
Is
So
it
I
real
need to
summer
go to
solstice, June
Glastonbury.
21st? Oh wow, well, that's quite good. Okay, fine.
We should have some kind of ceremony here.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
we will. We'll do something, definitely. We'll talk a bit about that.
That's what I saw, probably. Yeah.
Yeah.
21st of June.
Mhm.
Great. So these. Yeah, so I'm doing something slightly different this year with the penultimate class and the last class, which is so the next class we'll do a bit on the solstice, but also and a bit more teaching, but a lot of it will be bringing everything together. So synthesis and analysing a chart from beginning to end. Let's say the following class will be like doing, again, more bringing things together. You can never spend enough time bringing things together. So we'll be doing 2 classes on that, but also a presentation. So I'll be giving you, I'll be emailing these notes to you. But if you just have a look at that for now.
Thank you.
This is what I'll be sending you, and you need to fill these out for a chart. So just making sure that there's nothing in there you don't quite understand. See, better to tell you now than. Well, there's more pages. There's page 2 and 3.
Alright, so from a chart you fill in
Yes.
what they're
That's the
gonna- Oh, this
structure
is
of doing
good.
a
I
read. I
like
think that's really
this.
useful.
Yes.
Oh, I feel good now. I feel better now.
Yeah. So good.
It's a nice structure.
It's the structure thing there. I
It's
forgot.
very
what-
organised of you.
I know. I much. Yeah. Last
It's
year
a
I
bit-
wasn't
it's a
so
bit,
organised.
You know, when you said about you had to kind of present this chart, and I was like, oh, I don't know how to do any of it. But
Yeah,
this is like
that's
just
the
a
structure is
bit
good. So
better.
it'll be what I'll ask you to do. Let's just see if there's any difficult questions here. Is to fill one of these. Be good to fill if you can fill 3 of these out for 3 different charts. That would be good for practice, and then we'll go through some of these charts next class. So this is like homework,
Case study.
case studies, exactly. So name is quite easy. You just put the name of the chart. Birth details quite easy. The day of the week is quite easy. If you can't find it, I can.
There's the internet.
The internet, it'll be fine.
There's the internet version.
Now, there's something called chart pattern, which we haven't really gone through, I don't think, chart patterns like buckets and seesaws and locomotives.
No.
So don't worry about that. If you see, it says chart pattern.
Okay.
Unless you know what you're doing, then
I'm not sure I know.
you're not sure. Okay, well then just leave it. And then when it says elements, planets in fire, planets in air, you just write all the planets that are in fire signs. All the planets. This is quite straightforward.
Yeah.
And then then there's a more difficult question, which is, it says overall balance and strength of elements. So you need to write words there,
Yeah.
as in words that reflect your understanding of the elemental makeup of the individual. So like, very strong fire, poor water, so might be dominant and lack emotional connection. Something like that. Doesn't have to be much. Some kind of appraisal. And then the same with the modalities, planets in cardinal signs, fixed signs, mutable signs. Hemispheres, what planets are in the north. And you remember that the north, with this,
Yes, upside down.
that's
Yeah.
north,
Yeah.
that's south, that's east, that's west. So don't get it wrong. Okay. You're paying attention. And then planets. Here we've got, it says planets in rulership. So remember that table of the planets I gave you, rulership, detriment, exaltation, fall. So just get that out and just check, you know, is Mars ruler, detriment, fall, that type of thing. And then planets in their natural house. So you, to find it, the natural house is, you know, you've got one, so Aries, Taurus, Gemini, and so on. So the natural house for Mars would be the first house, Venus, the second house, Mercury, the third house. Because Mercury rules Gemini, Venus rules Taurus, Sun rules Aries. So you just go round. So Mercury in the third house is Mercury's natural house. Because it rules Gemini. If you're a bit stuck, you can always email me. And planets close to an angle.
Are you giving homework?
This is homework. I'm going to give you the sheets
Oh, okay.
because you don't have email. I'll email the rest of you. If you have a planet close to an angle, generally I would say 6 degrees, 5-6 degrees. So if you just see, say like in Suki's chart here, you can see that Pluto is close to an angle, but nothing else is close to an angle. So there's nothing close to that ascendant, the IC, the descendant, but Pluto is 22 Leo, and the MC is 25 Leo, so that's 3 degrees, so that's close. So you would write, planets close to an angle, Pluto, MC. It's quite straightforward. You just look. If it's close, you write it down.
Do we explain what this means?
Not at this stage. You just write it down. And then aspects. You've got aspect patterns. So there's notes on your aspects. So whether it is a T-square, you know, a grand trine, a grand cross, all of these things, these are aspect patterns. So you should be able to identify an aspect pattern. And then the tightest aspects. So on most of your sheets, I've given you aspect things here. So you just basically write down the closest aspects. It means the closest to exact. So like in Tsukiko's case, Mercury opposite Saturn would be the closest because they're just 1 degree apart, 1 minute apart. And then, so I'm going to say the top 5 aspects.
Which one? Show me. What did you say?
Well, see, Mercury is 4 degrees 20 minutes. Saturn is 4 degrees 21 minutes. So that's very close. Whereas Mercury-Venus is 1 degree apart. So it's a bit further. So the closest to exact is what I'm after.
Opposition?
It doesn't matter what the aspect is, whether it's conjunction, square, opposition. You're basically reading this box. Well, I think on most of your charts I've given you a box. Yeah. I've given you a box. On a chart that I've given you. No. Oh no, maybe I haven't given it to you.
Which one?
Oh, no, hang on.
That's nice.
No.
No.
No,
No.
you didn't, no.
I've got it on your chart. There.
Oh,
Bottom right.
yeah, I have it.
Yeah. Yeah, there it is.
Yeah.
That
have
box
it.
there. If you don't have it, I can just email it.
I have
But you can work it out just from the chart.
Yes.
Because the other thing is,
This one.
if you've got
This one?
here, this box here,
Aspect.
this box,
Check. I have it.
you can tell because they've got numbers on. So it's really the lowest number is the tightest aspect. It says 1 degree, 1 450, 2 degrees, 1, 1, 3. So you just go for where that's 0 degrees 7 minutes. So Chiron moon is very strong.
Do you include the angle or only the planets?
Angles, aspects to angles is also good. And then unaspected planets, planets that just don't have any aspects, any major aspects. So that's good. And then for the rest of it, it's also quite straightforward. You've got the second page here, detailed analysis. So what you do is you write, it's very straightforward. I put the angles, the ascendant, I want the sign on the ascendant. That's easy, you just look at the sign. Aspects to the ascendant, the sign and house placement of the ascendant ruler. So if you're Taurus rising, what's the planet rules Taurus? Venus. So what house and sign is Venus in? Straightforward. And then any comments?
Do you have to interpret that information?
Yeah, comments.
Information. I don't know what it means.
It's just any comments you like. Just whether it's an intuition, a vague thing. Say if, for example, you had Aries on the ascendant with Mars in Sagittarius close to the MC. Right? You might say, this strikes me as someone who's very driven, lots of fire. Aries is fire, the ruler is Mars, a fire planet, in another fire sign close to the MC. Might be quite ambitious. See? Someone who's, say, Pisces rising with Jupiter or Neptune are the kind of two rulers in water signs. Someone very sensitive, very emotional. See? But if you have, say, Aries rising with Mars in Pisces or Mars in Cancer, someone who's fiery but might be also quite emotionally sensitive. So something like that, you know. Anything you can come up with.
Related to astrology.
You have to actually do some astrology on this course, I'm afraid. And I've done that with the same, with all the angles. And then here, houses with 3 or more planets. That's simple. You just look at a house and how many planets does it have in it. And just add up to 3. It's not that difficult. And then here, house, sign, cusps, and planet ruler's position. So you just go through them all. The sign on the 8th house and where the planet that rules the 8th house is. Straightforward. And then the planets are generally quite straightforward. The sun, what sign is the sun in? What house is the sun in? The house cusp it rules. So therefore, what sign does the sun rule? Leo. So what house cusp does Leo rule?
What does house cusp? What does cusp mean?
Well, okay, if you look at your own charts, have you got your own charts there?
Yeah.
Great. So Yin, what house does Leo rule in your chart?
The
12th. Yes, exactly. So you would write here. If you would say the sun is in Scorpio, the sun is in the 3rd house, the house cusp it rules is the 12th house, and the aspects the sun makes. So for Meg, where's your sun?
In my 7th house in Leo.
In Leo. And what house cusp does Leo rule?
The 7th.
7th house, exactly. Same for Tsukiko.
4 and 5.
The sun rules.
Oh.
Yes, the sun rules 4 and 5, and the sun is in the 6th, but close to the descendant. Right, great. So that's all straightforward. And Suki, make sure you've understood
Sun
this.
in the 7th.
Sun is in the 7th house. Good.
Gemini.
And what house cusp does Leo rule in your chart?
Leo. 9 and 10.
10. Good. So you all understood it. Fantastic. And the same with the moon. The only addition to the moon is what phase is the moon. That's, obviously, sun doesn't have phases. So it says here phase, and I want whether it's waxing, waning, if it's first quarter, that type of thing. And it's in your notes. So you just tell me the phase. Mercury, again, the sign, the house it's in, house cuspid rules, which you know. And also let me know if it's direct or retrograde. for all the planets, because the Sun and Moon can never be retrograde. But for Mercury, Venus, see about these notes.
Would you say why they wouldn't appear to be retrograde? I remember you explained.
Yeah, I'll explain that another time. So it's the same with all of them. Venus, Mars. I mean, I had about 4 more bits of data for you to fill in, but I thought I'll just be easy on you. Whether it's Occidental or Oriental and things like that. But this is a beginner's course, so I'll let them off. You can add all that information if you really want to. But it's good.
I've just done my chart, so
Yeah.
someone's chart, yeah.
And then for the moon's nodes, slightly different. The sign the moon's nodes are in, south and north. South is always 180 degrees opposite north. So, say for Meg, you've got the north is in Leo, south is in Aquarius. The houses they're in, the north is in the 7th, the south is in the 1st. The north node is ruled by which planet? So the north node would be ruled by the Sun. The south node would be ruled by Saturn and Uranus. And the aspects made. And then finally, you've got synthesis, my final bit here. And I've got overall themes of the chart. So you're just going to have to come up with something. You can't leave it blank. Okay? Whether it's very sensitive, very aggressive, very confused, very poetic, or they've got issues with their Mars, or they're angry, or whatever you think it is. Just take a stab in the dark and tell me why, obviously. Most important challenges of the chart. Maybe Venus has lots of Saturn on it or Pluto on it, and so that Venus is a challenge. And then the greatest strengths of the chart, where their talents are, what they are likely to be good at. And then finally, you've got on the back final comments, and I've given you a whole A4 sheet. Final comments, and you can go to town, and you can write loads. You know, if you want to write 5 pages, feel free, or just. Not at all. You can leave that one blank if you're really stuck. Anyway, this is for you to take home.
Thank you.
And
How
that's
many? So
also for
3?
you to take
Or
home.
just 3?
3, I think. 3, let's be generous to you. You got
3 of these.
5
3
weeks.
people. We need to find 3 charts.
Oh, it's someone else's chart we're talking.
It's good to do. Good to do your own, and good to do 2 other people's chart.
Okay.
And they don't have to be family. You could pick.
Oh, no, I wouldn't.
You
No.
could pick Tony
Yeah.
Blair.
Oh, no, thank you very
How
much.
would you know?
What?
How would you? I mean, you can get his birthday, but
Yeah.
how do you know where
Right.
and when and?
There are charts. If you just type in Tony Blair astrology chart, someone has got the information.
Okay.
So not all celebrities have charts. Like Obama has his chart, although there was some dispute on the exact time, but it doesn't really matter. But there are celebrity astrology websites, and they just give all their birth times and details. I've got celebrities. So if you don't want to do family, if you're fed up with family, do other people's charts
Okay.
or clients' charts. You know, you can do any chart you like.
Well,
But
we had few charts of patients here for Gibraltar.
yes,
Those ones
exactly.
I got still in my...
Yes, you could do those.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I haven't got access to printer or computer or anything.
No. Okay. Good. Great. So let's move on to today then. Any questions? I'll email it all to you, and if you have questions, you can just email them.
By next or by the
By
July?
June. By June.
By June, so that by next.
Yeah. No, you're not. You've got 5 weeks. You can.
So
June is the last class, isn't it?
July is
is
the
the
last.
last.
Oh.
So Sunday I'll be here.
Yeah. We'll just go through yours on Sunday. Right then. So transits, progressions, directions, time. It's all about time. See, I was thinking of doing a 3-hour lecture on the meaning of time, but I think I will move on.
Could you? Little bit, please.
I'll go a little bit about time.
Interesting.
Time is interesting. Time is strange.
Yes.
See, it's not what we're led to believe. There is third dimensional time, literal time, and then there's symbolic time. Now, symbolic time is more pure time. Plato talked about this. If you want to really understand, I mean, Plato's an interesting description of time, because Plato, the Platonic model, it's going to take a long time to go through Plato, but essentially, he talked about the as above, so below, and all that stuff, but how there is a perfect, idealized image, and then there is the earthly, imperfect reflection of that perfect image.
Oh, is that the cave things?
The cave thing,
Cave things, yeah.
but there's many other areas that he's talked about, yeah,
Oh.
but the cave is one of those things. So, so there is two sets of time. Time as it proceeds to on earth in earthly consciousness, which is a linear progression of time, and a felt sense of time, and then there is the symbolic time, and symbolic time is doesn't obey the same laws as linear time. Symbolic time is more mathematical, and things have sequences, and things can reflect other sequences. So in other words, you can have one day, one Earth rotation on its own axis, 24 hours, can be a reflection of 1 year. Or one day can be a reflection of 1 century. Or one day could be a reflection of 1,000 years. Different cycles of time. And a minute of time can be reflected in an hour of time, and all time can be seen in other bits of time. It's a bit like you see it with space, in things like reflexology. So you've got the foot, it can be you can see the entire body. You can see the whole in the part. You can see the whole body in the foot. You can see the whole body in the ear, on the nose. In the eyes, iridology. So you can see the whole in the part when it comes to space. But the same principle applies to time. You can see the whole in the part. You can see the whole lifetime in 1 day. You can see the whole, and that is symbolic time, and it does mess with people's heads, I have to say. Because people can understand it more when it comes to space than when it comes to time. But time can be a reflection of other periods of time. Just got to bear that in mind.
Can I just ask, is that secondary progress?
That's secondary progressions, but also solar arcs, also...
But the one day for the whole
Yes,
year.
primary directions.
direction.
Primary directions, secondary progressions, tertiary progressions.
So it is doing my mind in.
Yes.
I do get the space bit, the reflexology, etc.
Yes.
But what is going on? How can I see?
I know. It's not... okay, how should I put this? Things tend to get replayed, and so you can have... It's the same period thing with the embryogenesis, right? So you've got the 9 months of human gestation is on an esoteric perspective, is replaying the entire history of mankind from when evolutionary, so when the humans were much more primitive. They had much more primitive bodies, and they were bound to the earth, nurtured intravenously, by the earth. And it's a very different consciousness, embryonic consciousness. And then, so there's often a thing about it's a bit, you know, when you watch a series on TV, right? And then just before they start a new episode, some series do like a flashback of the key moments of the last episode, or the key moments of the last 3 or 4 episodes, so to get you, to remind you up to speed before they start the current episode. So therefore, what you're doing is you're condensing time and replaying that.
Okay.
And so it's the same sometimes with past lives. You get certain experiences in childhood are compressing lots of past life experiences into, you know, the first 14 years of life, sometimes 21 years of life, can be seen as like hundreds of years of past life experiences or ancestral experiences getting touched on in childhood. So there's often this thing of replaying time, but in a more compact form. This thing of summarizing things, summarizing time.
Is it like when you said the day,
Yeah.
one day
Yeah.
is a reflection of a lifetime, so how
Yeah.
the morning is how you
Yes.
began life,
Yes,
and then the midday,
Okay.
and then the evening.
yes, how you
That's-
experience death.
yeah.
Yes, exactly. And then the dream bit is when you experience the time in between lives, the afterlife experience, the pre-birth experience. So, yes, so yes, you can see a day equaling your entire life. You know, a lot of childhood things can come up in the morning. You know, I mean, it's not so obvious as that. I mean, it's, you know, it would be silly if it was that obvious. But subtle themes can come, and this thing at the beginning, the middle, and the end. And you could just project the beginning and the middle and end to one day, to 1 week, to 1 year, to one lifetime, to the whole history of and the future of the solar system. You know, so everything, time is much more symbolic. That's what I'm trying to get through. Is that time is symbolic, and you see that symbolism play out much more in astrology when we're dealing with non-transits. You know, so you've got 2 essential ways of dealing with time in astrology. One is transits, and the other is directions. There's a few others as well. And transits are in real time. So, for example, like I was saying with the full moon, there's going to be a full moon on Wednesday, and that is a full moon at 23 Scorpio, and it doesn't matter where you are in the world, there will be a full moon at 23 Scorpio for the entire planet on Wednesday. It might not always be Wednesday, obviously time zones,
Yeah.
it could be Thursday. But essentially it'll be at the same time experience. It's just we give different numbers to this time depending on where we are in the world. But it happens at one moment in time. And also for transits in terms of, I'm sure, you know, I've spoken to you, giving consultations, how, say if I say Saturn is transiting your MC, you see, so that is Saturn in real time is at the same degree that your MC was at birth. So there, with transits, you're experiencing something in real time, in 3D linear time, in how where the planets are now, physically, in an observable time and space, and how they reflect to something, a birth moment, you know, which is a fixed point in time. So there's the current set of time, current positions, and their relationship to positions at a fixed moment in time in the past, you know, your birth charts. So that's, and the thing with transits are that they are, everyone is experiencing the transits. It's a common experience. But because we have different biographies, different characters, we respond to that differently. So, for example, like the weather, you know, if it's raining, so a lot of us might feel a bit miserable, but other people might feel very happy if there's been their garden is very dry. They'll feel joy at this rain, you see, because that it nourishes their garden, and or some people don't care. They don't really care about the rain. I like walking in the rain. I like doing things in the rain. Or I've wanted to get on with cleaning the house, and it's raining. So actually, I'm really happy that it's raining, because I can finally get to clean the house because I can't go out because it's pouring with rain. So everyone will respond differently to the same phenomena, you see. But there will be something in common, obviously. So when there is, say, Saturn in Scorpio, it does bring out a lot of underworld themes and to be accountable to any abuses of power. That's a big theme for Saturn in Scorpio. So the entire world is experiencing that. But of course, those that have done bad things are going to experience it differently to those who've been on the receiving end of bad things, of misuses of power. And those that have either been neither a victim nor a perpetrator will also experience it differently. But the theme is a universal theme. So that's what I'm trying to get at. So there's something universal, but through the lens of our personal life, we experience the universal differently. And transits are often experienced very much in the emotions, in the psychology, and sometimes in the body as well. The body psyche, you know, often perceives these.
Like a moon phase and
Yes.
water retention
Exactly.
and heavy. And
Yes, and then the emotions, and so we experience it much more in. We're quite conscious a lot of time of transits. Maybe not always the outer planet transits, but they affect us. They affect us, yeah, like Ubach would say, in our astral body, through sensation, but more through a felt sense usually. Just get some water, let it dry. And you can just use transits. I mean, transits alone are very useful. Transits, I mean, some of the big things that have happened in my life and in my clients' lives have occurred at the time of a transit. You know, Saturn going over Sun, and transits, you could just use transits exclusively and you'll still get a lot of information. And that is all held in the, transits are all held in the third dimensional time, which is the time we live in. Where directions, so this is real time, I'll call it real time. It's not necessarily, paradoxically, it's often seen as Maya time. You know,
illusion.
it's illusion, but we consider it real because it's clock time. You see. Whereas this is symbolic time, which paradoxically can be more real. You think you're confused now? You'll be reeling by Sunday evening. So yeah, this is all symbolic time. Now, there are many. I'll explain more about symbolic time. So, symbolic time is therefore becomes very personal for a start. Symbolic time doesn't refer to a collective experience, because it's a day for a month, a day for a year. So therefore, 5 days after your birth might reflect the 5th year of life. So you're experiencing the cosmos 5 days after birth in your 5th year of life. So that's only applicable to you. See, because you're 5, you know, and someone else is 7, and someone, you know, it doesn't, and they're all different birth times, and everything is, it's very, very personal. So it's, you're having a personal experience that is unique to you, and it's not a personal experience of a collective phenomena. It's a personal experience of a personal phenomena. So that's very important to bear in mind. So it's very this collectivity is removed, and it becomes a personal journey. So in many ways, the directions become much more an unfolding of your soul plan. You know, I don't like that term, but anyway, it's just a term that entered my head. That's, you know, but your kind of karma, your personal story unfolds through this symbolic time more. Whereas here you're affected by the transits in that way, but the personal story, like telling a story, you know, you got chapter 1, and then in chapter 1 they might hint at something that's going to come in chapter 5. You see. And it's all, and you can see how there's often many narratives weaving through at different time periods during a novel. See, and that would be more the directions. Things happen to the main characters that might be more transits, but on that inner level, it unfolds on an inner level a lot through these directions, and they're less conscious, and they're often less. There's less free will often with these directions. Whereas the transits are, I'm feeling an influence coming from the cosmos, which feels like an influence, external influence. Whereas the directions, there is no external influence as such. It's something, it's like memories being reawakened. It's a bit like with your genes, you know, say if you've got a gene for diabetes, certain genes can switch on and get triggered at certain times of life. Say, you know, we saw that person the other day where if you have your mum has ovarian cancer at 47, and then at 47, you know, or another time period that's, you know, related to that, the daughter might switch on a gene that then starts causing something. See, so that is common to even the medical profession. But here, directions, there are certain things that are time coded that will switch on, or will release a memory, or will open up something at a certain time period that can't open up prematurely or can't open up later. There's a time for these things to open up. And that's coming from this inner story unfolding. And it's got nothing to do with, they'll come whether the transits are good or bad, because they'll just get switched on.
And can you see those astrologically?
Yes, and these are through these directions. So there are, they can be just as powerful as transits, but they're different because they are, they're more subjective, they're more, often there's less you can do about them than with transits. You know, say for example, Saturn is transiting your sun. Right, what happens when Saturn transits your sun? I'll tell you. Saturn the sun starts to feel this heavy weight on it. You know, literally, Saturn is sitting on my sun, so I'm feeling I can be hard on myself. Saturn on the sun. Why haven't I done these things? I'm not good enough. I should work harder. I feel guilty, or I need to commit to these things that are in my heart, you know, and to commit to them and do them. Or I can feel depressed. I can feel blocked. I can feel suicidal even. I mean, it can get really bad at times if you feel your whole direction's blocked. Or I can feel that I finally get recognition. Saturn is about reaping. So, you know, particularly later in life, I can feel that I'm starting to, people are recognizing my son for what it is. But that only comes if I recognize myself, and so on. So all of these are, and then how I deal with that. You know, say I'm getting a bit depressed, and I go to an astrologer, and they say, well, you've got Saturn on your sun, you know, heavy judgment. So then you say, well, then you can process it. See, this is why transits are more psychological in that sense. You go, okay, why am I depressed? It's because I've wanted to do so. I wanted to express myself, but I've never expressed myself. And Saturn is making me feel really bad that I haven't expressed myself. And is admonishing me for insulting my own self. So, and I feel I'm blocked. I can't express myself because my wife, my father, my mother blocks me in some way, or I block myself. And so you can work through transits. Whereas if the progressed Sun or progressed Saturn, solar arc Saturn, tertiary Saturn, primary direction Saturn, whatever these symbolic directions are, they're all different in subtle ways. Whenever that hits the Sun, it might trigger a new behaviour. It might trigger a phase that is difficult to work through, is more subtle. You can't always, and it feels something internally activated, a new thing in the heart. You know, is manifesting or is expressing, and it isn't so much something is happening to me. It's more something is happening inside me. Something is, it's not so much about processing, it's more something unfolding that was always there to unfold. Like a tree that is growing to a new stage, you know, it's now, the buds are coming out, you know, because it's spring. It's just, this is the way it goes. So you don't,
So how do you differentiate?
what do you mean, how do you
So if I'm feeling, you know, kind of like low and all the rest of it,
Yeah.
how would you know as my astrologer that it's a transit, or will you look at the chart?
I'd look at the chart,
Okay.
and I'll see what transits are there and
Yeah.
what progressions are there. Generally, you feel
so
much
transits
more
and
the
progressions
transits.
the same thing?
No,
So
Different
transits
charts.
are, oh, okay.
transits,
So transits are one thing,
One
progressions
thing.
are directions.
progressions, directions. They all come under the same. They're often different terms for the same thing.
Okay.
With transits are more conscious. You know, if you were feeling low, I'd probably say it's going to be a transit. If you start, say you were really into art for 20 years, right? Say from like 14 to 34, you're really pursuing art, and then around the mid-30s, you felt this change. You wanted to leave art and go more into music. See, and you felt music was more your thing. That's more likely to be a progression or a direction than a transit. There's something is shifting internally, and and you won't know why I'm suddenly going into music than art. You know, why using a different media for my artistic creativity. You would just feel drawn. You know, it would be something, and it wouldn't be a dilemma. It wouldn't. There might be some dilemma to it, but it wouldn't be much of a choice. It would feel like it's just something inwardly changing. See, it's less emotional. It's less
Like the
emotional.
seeds are got that has a different pace to grow, and
Yes.
so she's being dormanted for 30 years might to start
Yes,
to come
exactly.
up and then recognize, start suddenly beginning to recognize I had this seed and
Yes.
somehow it's watered for 30 years and
Yes.
now can see the kind of shoots coming
Yes,
out. That
exactly.
Kind of things.
Yes, exactly. So it's a very different experience. And of course, within the directions, they're also describing different things. Because there are many different types of directions. Each direction is describing a different level of consciousness, a different level of energy. And so, for example, there are things to do with your physical body, timing of an illness coming out. And then there's things to do more with the subtle bodies, you know, the etheric body, astral, spiritual, you know, so and each direction works with different levels, so it's much more complicated. Now, we're not going to do much on directions, we'll do a bit, we'll do them, you know, but just for your just to know what they are, you've got, the main ones are primary, secondary, and solar arc, and you could say tertiary. Tertiary isn't a great name for it. Now, primary and secondary isn't like number one and number two. You know, it's not a hierarchical. It's not like the best and then the second best. The gold medal and the silver medal. Primary refers to primary motion, right?
Motion or emotion?
Motion. So you've got primary motion and secondary motion. And this is more astronomy. I'll explain it, but you know, if you don't quite get it, don't worry too much about it. Primary motion is the name given to the motion of the Earth rotating on its own axis. That's primary motion. So how long does it take for the Earth to spin on it once round on its axis?
24 hours.
24 hours, yes. And that gives us night and day. Very simple. So that's primary motion. So secondary motion is the motion of the Earth going round the Sun. That's secondary motion. And therefore, not just the Earth going round the Sun, but all the other planets going round the Sun. So it's movement of planets through the signs. That's secondary motion. Okay, so primary motion, how many degrees? So if a sphere is rotating on its axis, right? Then you have it takes 24 hours. Now, of course, a sphere you can divide into 360 degrees. And that's where you got the latitudes, longitude. So we're, London, through Greenwich, is 0 degrees. Right? And roughly through New Zealand and the international date line is 180 degrees. You with me?
Yeah.
International deadline.
International date line, yeah. So, and then of course back round the other way will be 360 degrees. So London's nice and easy because it's 0. So one movement of the Earth on its own axis by 1 degree, right, and it's known as that movement on its own axis is known as right ascension. Again, it's good to be aware of these terms, right ascension. I'm not sure if I spelled that right. 1 degree of right ascension is around 4 minutes of clock time. And so they're 360 times 4, 24 hours. And, well, not quite, because it's not quite 24 hours, but anyway. And 1 degree of right ascension equals 1 year of life. Right, so so that equates roughly to 4 minutes of 4 minutes. Say if you had 12 minutes after you were born would relate to the 3rd year of your life, because it's 4 minutes equals 1 degree equals 1 year of life. So 8 minutes, you know, and so if you were to say if you're 30 years of age, how many
2
minutes?
hours.
How many?
120 minutes.
It would be no. Three. Oh yes, 120 minutes. Yes.
2 hours,
Sorry,
yeah,
it's 120 minutes. 2 hours
Yeah.
or something. Got confused there. How many minutes in an hour? I could do all the complicated stuff, but how many minutes in an hour? It froze me. So yeah, so 30 years of age will relate to 2 hours after your birth, roughly. It's not quite. It's, you know, a bit more dependent or a bit less. So really, your entire life, you know, if you're 90 years, if you die at 90, is just a few hours. So what can change in a few hours? Nothing much changes in a few hours. The moon might move a little bit, but it's all the angles change, and that's the key thing.
So do you work it backwards then? Yeah, sorry. Okay. Because it's not predetermined how long you're going to live, is it?
No. Well, yes, in some ways it is, but you start off from birth moment and you move forwards. And you can do reverse primary directions where you're going back in time, but that's another thing. There's everything, there's converse and direct.
There is a complete accuracy as well, the lifespan.
Yes,
But
yes.
that's a different...
That's a different thing, and in the old days, people would tell you when you were going to die through the chart, with varying degrees of accuracy. I mean, many astrologers have predicted their own death quite accurately. Some of them have predicted it very
Who is
inaccurately.
the one? Sharp things.
Oh yeah,
I
yes.
think.
King Henri II, I think, the astrologer said he was going to die on this date with a sharp injury to the eye, and he was jousting, and a splinter came off the joust and went through the visor and went through his eye, and died. He ignored his astrologer's advice.
He ignored.
Yeah. So sometimes you can get things, you know, right, but we don't generally do that these days. In India, they still do that more, but that's not the way I work and teach. But if you want to learn that, you could. There are techniques. But anyway, primary directions is still. It's not about so much death, but it is about certain things that are timed to unfold and that will happen. And that comes a lot to do with things particularly out of your control. They're going to happen. There's no free will with primary directions. There's nothing you can do about it. It's just,
So up to 6 hours, everything. Yeah. 6
yes,
hours.
6
so
hours.
360. So
6
up
hours.
to
Oh, I
6
see.
hours of
Okay.
the bus.
Yeah.
Yes.
Reveal the life.
Oh,
Yes.
wow.
I mean, if you live to 110 or something, you might get, you know.
But 6 hours probably the maximum, isn't it? It's
Yes.
360.
Yes. I mean, you could do. I mean, if you live very long,
Long.
it could be a bit more, but around 6 hours for most things. So yeah, 6 hours of time from after the birth, you know.
Why don't they
But that
teach mothers
doesn't.
this? Why don't they teach mothers to...
But it doesn't matter what you do.
But it's just would it give you greater insight if
No.
you were looking at your children?
No, it'd be way too subtle
It's
for
way
you
too
to.
subtle, okay.
Because most kids, when they come out,
What's the point of it then?
most kids when they come
I don't
out.
want to know what happened 3 hours after I was born, yeah, because it's...
No, but that's irrelevant. What happens to you is irrelevant. See, it's what's happening in the stars that's relevant. Because the thing is that most kids, after the first 6 hours, they spend feeding and sleeping and crying. That's the experience of 99% of children. Sometimes they might get a trauma, but a lot of the times they might just sleep and cry and feed. So it's not that exciting.
Okay, so my daughter almost died when she was born.
Right. Yeah.
So what,
Yes.
what happened there?
Well, then there'd be something on the ascendant. Her incarnation would have been a traumatic event, and that will replay at various times. But that's it's still nothing really to do with the primary directions. The primary directions is what is happening in the stars. What's happening in the Earth's relationship to the cosmos in the first 6 hours. That's the key thing, and by seeing what happens in the cosmos, you'll see how that will then give indications of timing for things in your life. Primary
Okay,
directions
so
are
you,
not.
So you look at what's in the cosmos rather than.
Yes,
Okay.
I don't ask the child I don't ask what was happening in your first 6 hours of life. It's irrelevant to me. It doesn't mean anything. It's what's happening in the stars.
Okay.
You see,
Okay.
but primary directions, they were used a lot in medieval times. They're not very common these days. I use them now and then, but also you tend to not get much. You might get, say, in 90 years, you might get maybe 12 or 15 interesting things happening. So there could be long periods of time where there's not much happening. But there are key moments, But again, they're not always dramatic. Don't think, my primary directed ascendant is going over Jupiter. It's going to be a massive event. It's not always a massive event. It can be a very subtle event, but it might steer your destiny in strong ways. So don't. Many people kind of, wow, these once in a lifetime things, it's going to change my life. It's not always that. It can be, but it's not always that dramatic. And then we've got secondary progressions. And secondary progressions are governed by the not primary motion, which is the Earth on its axis, but secondary motion. And secondary motion is, remember, the motion of the planets through the signs. So, in particular, it is the Earth's relationship to the Sun, which is one day equals 1 year. So that is one full rotation, but where the Earth is in the same relationship to the Sun. So yeah, it's pretty much 24 hours. It's not quite 24 hours, but 1 day, one whole day equals a year of life. So again, 6 days after birth will relate to the 6th year. So instead of going from now 6 hours being a lifetime, it will be about 90 days, 85 days or whatever the average lifespan is. And of course, a lot more happens in 80 days, 90 days than in 6 hours. Because you're getting changes in planets in signs. See, so it's not just about the angles shifting; it's the planets and the signs. Particularly the moon. The moon will go. How many days does it take for the moon to go once around the zodiac? Not you. You three. Can't have her answer all the questions. Sorry?
30?
Good. So not bad. Any advance on that?
Say that again, what's the question?
How long does it take for the moon to go once around the zodiac?
Around the zodiac. Is it a month?
28.
28 days, getting closer.
27?
27 days. 27.3 days.
That used to coincide with the menstrual cycle. That's what I'm remembering, because in my culture, they
Yeah.
talk about the cycle.
There are two. Remember, I said there's 2 lunar cycles. The sidereal cycle, which is the moon going once around the zodiac, which is 27.3 days, and the synodic cycle, which is the moon going once around the earth but coming back to the same position in relation to the sun. So it goes into the same lunar phase from new moon to new moon. And how many days is that, new moon to new moon? Not you. So if once around the zodiac, 27 days, new moon to new moon or full moon to full moon, how many days?
The same.
No, it can't be the same.
Half, isn't it?
It's 29.5 days.
Takes longer because
Yeah, because
sun
it's-
also moves.
Yes.
So from zodiac to zodiac, it's a set point.
Oh,
But-
right.
When it's relation to the sun also moves. So
Okay.
need to travel a little bit further.
Yes. Anyway, so if the moon takes 27.3 days, then and you live, to late 80s, the moon will go round the zodiac 3 times in your lifetime. If it's 1 day for a year. So, so you get much more movement. The moon aspects everything, and the sun will go through, potentially 3 signs of the zodiac in that time. And secondary progressions are used more common than the primary directions. Yes. And then we have tertiary progressions, and they relate to one how does it go again? One day. No, that's not it. One lunar cycle. How does it work here? I forgot. I don't use them. That's why I can't remember. It's related to the lunar cycle. So it's either 1 day equals a month. 1 day equals 1 lunar cycle. And of course there's, 27.3 days. Or 29, I can't remember. Or it's 1 lunar cycle equals a year. I think it's 1 day equals a month. But anyway, that's the tertiary. So obviously you're going to have many, one lifetime will relate to the first couple of years of life. So the different symbolic time frames. I don't bother with tertiary progressions. So some people use them and swear by them, but I just can't be bothered. There's too many things to do. You just can't do it all. But you can, if you're interested in lunar cycles and symbolic times of lunar cycles, tertiary.
Then the Vedic more use this tasha or
No, not so much. And then you come to solar arcs. Now, solar arcs are similar to secondary progressions in that it's 1 day for a year, but whereas in secondary progressions everything moves 1 day in a year, which is so the sun is going to move 1 degree a day, the moon moves 13 degrees a day, Pluto might move just a few minutes in a day. So everything moves at their own speed. Whereas solar arcs, everything moves by the same amount as the sun. So everything moves 1 degree a day. So therefore, your charts, all the planetary relationships are the same. All the aspects are the same. It doesn't change. The only thing is that everything moves 1 degree a year. And they're also commonly used, solar arcs. Solar arcs particularly reflect the physical body. So
the illness.
yeah, sometimes accidents, injuries, and physical things. But it's more the physical plane than the health. So it could be setting up a business or buying a house. All of these things are very physical events. So they're more tied to physical events and the body. Secondary progressions are more subtle body experience. Transits are more kind of emotional, psychological experience. And we live a lot of our time in our emotional, psychological world. So the emotional, psychological for transits, subtle bodies for secondary and primary, and more physical body timing or material timing for solar arcs. I'm not sure about tertiary, it'd probably be some sublunar, subconscious thing.
So, and this is going off the subject completely, but just I'd be quite interested. When I was menstruating,
Yep.
there would, certain, and we all know that certain times of the month you get water retention, you get more spotty. For me, it would always be that my nails would break. That would be my sign that it would just happen. So what's going
That
on
would
there?
be probably the transiting moon.
I get clumsy.
Yeah, exactly. Fall over. Yeah. And
Your
even
feet
now,
is
when I'm,
nothing.
I'm menopausal, but that cycle is still happening,
Yes.
even though I'm not bleeding. But there's still,
Because the lunar cycle has a strong affinity to the endocrine system,
Hormonal,
to
yeah.
the hormonal system. So certain times it will bring out excess hormonal responses or deficient hormonal responses,
Right.
or and the hormones have an impact on the emotions, and so it's all.
So that will be happening anyway, won't it? Regardless of whether or not.
Yes,
yeah.
that will be the transiting moon.
Yeah, yeah.
Most
Yeah,
of that
but
would be
it's
transiting.
easier or difficult might be the transiting moon. Depends. Not every month looks similar,
Yeah.
but slightly different.
yeah,
That
yeah.
means that transiting moon gives that kind
Yes.
of more emotional
So why
reaction
why
or
does
more
it only
physical
affect
reaction.
women, or is it just that women are aware of it? Why
Well,
does it affect
women.
It does affect me.
It does.
It does
must
affect
do,
men,
doesn't it?
yes,
Yeah.
but
Just
women live more in that world, you see. Men live more in the head and the more exterior. And also, the thing of the women are more sensitive to the moon, for a start,
Yeah.
and women are more receptive. Because of having a baby, having a child, they have to allow the world into them. They have to allow things to grow inside them. They have to be. Men are more Mars-like, and Mars, it always pushes out everything that's foreign. You see, so many ways that if a man had a womb, they still couldn't really give birth because they won't allow anything foreign to live inside them because the Mars is too strong.
Yeah, the fetus
Testosterone.
is parasite, isn't it?
Yeah. So whereas women are obviously biologically enabling things to live inside them, they're very sensitive to all these fluctuations because the moon, estrogen levels, emotional, things. And the thing is, the myth is that after you stop menstruating, that the hormones calm down. The hormones are just as active after menstruation than before. It's just the levels of estrogen might drop, but estrogen is just one hormone, and the estrogen levels they might drop, but they don't disappear. But you've got loads of hormones. Pituitary is very active. All these things are very active. It's just you're not wanting to go through the childbearing years.
Yeah,
anymore.
just energy center from womb to more third
Exactly,
eye. It's a different
exactly. It
direction,
changes.
but
So
it's the same
The hormones are still a thing.
powerful energy, isn't it?
And this is being more receptive to the cosmos, more receptive to the moon. Whereas
Is that why in leadership women tend to be more empathic, typically?
yes, yes,
Whereas men will be much more
yes.
my way or the highway.
Exactly.
Yeah,
When I was pregnant, I actually had that thought. This is like having a parasite. I felt like I had a parasite.
Right, it's a parasite.
Yeah, it's
This
like,
is
why
why-
is this even allowed?
In
But that's
Ayurvedic
really
medicine,
interesting.
that's what it says, it's a parasite. The
Yeah.
mineral growing.
Yes.
Yes.
And you've got a strong Mars, you know, for a woman, so you
How interesting.
feel
So
that.
mine was completely different. Mine was.
I had a
I've
horrible
never,
pregnancy.
I've
A
never
gift
been.
from the heavens.
It was. It was. I was kind
Exactly.
of like floating around, just kind of, you know,
Yeah.
this absolutely Venus state.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
But-
And you
but,
could tell that because your moon is in Libra. And
Meg, yeah,
Meg's
Meg's, yeah.
moon's
The
Libra.
Venus, yes.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
And Yin's moon is in Capricorn.
Oh, Saturn.
It's quite clear the difference there.
Well, men are affected sexually, I would say, with the moon
With the moon,
phases.
are they?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sexually,
Sexually.
I mean the more libido. You mean the libido?
Yeah,
Yes, there is that, but also, you know, emotionally,
Yeah.
they are affected emotionally, but they're not. It's not such a big, you know, changes. And,
I think that's why they tend to go for a drink and then drink more on the
Yeah.
full moon and then have a lot of fight and then things
Yeah.
kind of more externally
Yeah.
expressed.
Yes. Yes, the phases of the moon will affect everyone, but it's just. See, women go more with the tides, you know, the inflow and the outflow. Men are still affected by the inflow and the outflow, but they have to stay. They want to stay firm, and they just get buffeted a bit, you know, because they have to.
Why do we bleed? Surely that's a Mars thing.
That's a Mars thing.
But we are releasing the memory
Yeah.
because moon hold the memory and we holding the mother's memory and then as every month we need to release that memory which can be heavy.
Yeah. If you didn't bleed, you'd be emotionally
Why
wrecked.
would it
We'd be
be like
emotional
a,
wrecks, would we?
Yeah.
why would it not be, instead of having blood, that Mars thing, why would it not be like a clear fluid or something that's still released?
Europe is it downstairs
There are two groups combined.
today.
But
It's fine when they're in. We'll coincide
So
breaks.
is it upon our Mars that we're...
the memory, yes, and then we recycle it. We're renewing the kind of blood forces.
And there are some kind of training about stopping your periods. You know,
Oh yeah, in Taoist.
Taoist things and.
So why?
Well, because it does, you know, use up energy, takes up energy. So it's about conserving and redirecting energy centres.
Yeah, but they're quite ill, the ones who stop their period for some reason.
Yeah, I mean, often if you're an athlete, stop their
Yeah.
periods because, you know,
That's the problem with the...
or if you're anorexic,
Yeah.
you
Yes.
stop your periods. But to deliberately stop your periods through inner meditation work is different.
Is that okay? So what the
It's
Taoists-
okay if you know what you're doing. If you don't know what you're doing, you'll just cause problems. Many people do these things and they don't know, like Tantra. They try and do a bit of Tantra. I have no idea what they're doing. They can,
Very
they can,
dodgy, can
very
be.
dodgy. Taoist stuff is also, you know, if you're doing it half, you know, in half knowledge, you just create more suffering. Best not to either do it fully or not at all. Halfway is good. It's not like diet where you can have a bit of a healthy diet.
Yeah, you have to live the Taoist life.
Yeah, fully. You can't drink, you
Half
can't do
put
anything.
in and then a half, yeah.
Yeah.
Down.
But some women would come with the symptoms like some deep bowel problems, you know, that like the sphincter muscle is not working, or
Yeah.
paralysis, and it's actually due to the periods. They never link it.
Right.
Because yesterday I treated a woman, you know, nobody ever linked it. Physio coming to the house, this person, that person, and when I took the case for 2 hours with her, and it linked back to when she was given drugs because they thought it was lupus, and she was given a cancer drug. Within a week, her period stopped. Within 2 weeks, she stopped walking, and she's paralyzed.
Oh, wow.
So you got to start the periods to let out the energy again.
Exactly.
You start it.
Yes.
So, and
Exactly. Yes. Letting out periods is really important. You know,
you know,
to have that.
and nobody even looked into it. They keep sending the, you know, the
I know.
physio
People don't make any connections.
But that was a connection, and she was really surprised. And another person with the bowel problem, sphincter muscle is not working. That's because of the Marina coil put in. Within
Coil,
1
that's-
month,
that's,
the
yeah.
period stopped, and the sphincter muscle gave in. So the one channel blocked, they blocked,
Yeah.
another channel opened
Yeah,
up. You know,
exactly.
it's like the groin, and another
Yeah.
channel going to open
Exactly.
up naturally.
Exactly.
It's crazy.
Crazy.
So what's going on then when people don't menstruate, and are not bleeding regularly?
Whilst they're often the hormones all over,
It's the
hormones all over the
the
place.
place.
Something that's either they're taking or imbalancing it something.
Yeah, or there's a lot of emotional traumas.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah, adrenal driven, so women become more men-like
yeah.
way of maybe mentally or like pushes herself for study or work or whatever, like more using adrenal male energy.
Because the thing is that the women also more rhythmic. Rhythm is much more in the female, and these particularly this monthly rhythm. Men tend to work with very different rhythms than women. So women need to do things monthly. This monthly cycle is so very strong for a woman, and not just periods, but loads of things monthly. To all that thing of the growing moon and then the waning moon, and letting go and building and doing it all. It's a bit like, and the women's life, in domestic life is also that. There's a lot of routine. You make the food and do the housework and all that type of thing is often seen as women, and is it going round in circles? See, whereas the man is, I'm going to build an empire. I'm going from A to B. See, there's this A to B energy in the man, and the women's life, like with kids, there isn't an A to B. There is just going round and nurturing and like looking after a plant. There's no A to B. You just have to water it when it gets dry. You have to nourish things. You have to clean things, and it's not a building thing, that is going to create something new, or it's a different energy. And with anything that's nurturing always needs a rhythmic cycle. It's the same with the digestion. There's a monthly rhythm, a yearly rhythm. You'd eat more in the winter, eat less in the spring, clean the liver and the splits. And in the different, if you do a food diary over a month, you would, be drawn to things. But we often overcome our impulses and just eat the same all month, whereas you would want to eat more at certain times, eat less at certain times, eat different foods at different times in the month, and more so for women than for men, but even for men a little bit, that variation is important. But yeah, women live more in the rhythmic senses. Because the thing is that women live more in the torso. Which is everything is internalized here in the chest and abdomen region, whereas the men live more outside. Their consciousness is more in the head and outside the body, reflects the genitalia. Female genitalia is inside the body, connected to the rhythm, and male genitalia is outside the body, disconnected from the rhythmic, metabolic sources. So they can project their consciousness outside, so therefore changing their environment, impacting on their environment. Something coming from an idea to the external world, rather than in a rhythmic harmony with the internal and external world. There was a classic, that joke something about, it wasn't very funny, but something about if a man and a woman go into a nice forest or something, the woman might say, "Oh, this is nice," has a nice feeling, nice atmosphere, and the man will say, "Right, how can I change it? Chop some trees down, build a shelter, exert my will on the environment, rather than just to live in harmony with that environment." See, it's a different process. So therefore they're not so rhythmic because they need to change the environment. And there's healthy ways of doing that and unhealthy ways. It's not that it's bad to change the environment.
It's different.
Yeah.
But they complement each other. isn't it?
Exactly. It's all yin and yang. And women should try and be more women, and men should be more men, rather than this thing of this androgyny, this metrosexual thing, where women they're encouraged to be more man-like and men more female-like. You know, it's not that men shouldn't be in touch with their feelings. Being cavemen. It's always good to be in touch with your feelings, but not to get too feminized.
Yeah.
You see, and women not to get too, because the further they're apart, but healthy in their own centre, the more, it'll be positive.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because as a woman in a male world, which obviously I've chosen to do and all the rest of it, just listening to you talk and just sort of like internalising it, it feels very much as if I haven't allowed myself to be true to who I am. I've allowed other people's perceptions of what it should be, and actually that's the bit that's awakening for me now, isn't it? That's interesting.
Because I used to work in a male-dominated industry. I couldn't do it now. Because it was more a woman doing a man's job in a man's world in a male way.
That distorts that body function.
Yeah.
It does, and it causes.
I was actually really stressed.
Disharmony inside.
That's.
Yeah.
So real kind of female feminism and equality is not about opportunities for women, it's about women doing things in a female way. See, so what, you could become Prime Minister if you have to be Prime Minister in a male way. That's not equality, that's not feminism, that's it's the thing of women doing things in a woman's way and men doing things in a man's way, and sharing tasks and sharing talents. And that's how it ought to be. Anyway, that's got nothing.
Sorry, that was a
but
real
anyway,
tangent,
yes, a
forgive
slight
me.
tangent,
Yeah,
but
it's really-
tangent's always fine. And of course, a lot of this is the moon. You see, the moon is very important, in the chart, and to really, give a lot of respect to that moon.
Especially for us as a women. You mean?
Yeah. Good. Okay, let's take a break.
Okay.
They should be finishing their break, so you can get some tea. Toilets.
What groups are they together today?
I can't remember.
Second and third year?
It could be second and third year. They don't normally combine.
Because by fourth is less people. Fine.
Yeah.
Strange weather, huh?
Yeah. Rain and sun and rain and sun.
Cold and hot and
Let me pause this.
windy and damp.
4 ethers. I'll explain this.
Sorry, what's the etheric body?
Aura.
Oh, your auras, okay.
Yeah,
they're
chi.
close to
It's
your
a bit like
physical
chi
body.
and subtle, so you've got.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to talk to you.
Oh no, that's alright.
That's
David's been eating
that's
fish
a
and
man.
chips and everything.
And that's a woman.
She got more peas.
Thank you.
So you've got two centres here, in the sacral and the head, and there are 4 ethers. You've got the life, the sound.
That's interesting one.
And warm light. This is more esoteric, but what's stuff and warmth. This is also the chemical process, chemical metabolism things. So for the woman has the life and sound in her sacral chakra. So therefore she can give life in her sacral chakra. And the head has the warmth and the light, ether. And for the man has warmth. Warmth here is kind of connect to the warmth of spirit, really. Ego. And light, and the sound, and life in the head. So, obviously, this is important, this polarity, so that the man brings in his sacral chakra this impulse. These are more, the warmth and light connect a bit more to heaven, see, and life and sound more to earth. So the man gives the warmth and light from the cosmos and gives that seed, and the woman takes that seed and enables life and that chemical metabolism of growth to be fostered in the womb. And interestingly, in this plane, the man can give life to ideas, see, life to the head, but needs this warmth,
It's nurturing.
and light from the female to enter the man, and the man will take this kind of gift from the woman and give life to it in his head, to ideas and to an idea of like creating something out of nothing. See, that's what men are good at. That if there is just say if there's a civilized, like to build a new city, a man can just see, the shape of the valley or something, and can visualize a whole new city, something that wasn't there before. You see, men can bring in something that wasn't there before, but without this, it tends to be like a man can create nuclear weapons that weren't there before. Because if there is something that doesn't have this thing of something heavenly quality, a gift of compassion and truth that the woman holds in the head, it can't. Its life force will be very. It will give life to abominations, which man has done. And if the woman has kind of cloning and not the male seed, it will also create all kinds of monsters, through all this, and that's not just with humans, but the same in the animal kingdom, that you can give just a bit of DNA to the female sheep or the female cow, and you create loads of cows, but without the warmth and light of the male sheep, or it's going to cause monsters in the same way the men can create monsters out of their head. Two are needed, but they're in different places. Anyway, that's just.
Well, what about homosexual couple?
Well, they won't be able to give
They
life.
don't give life.
They won't be able to conceive a child. It's
Without
the
being
warmth and
above.
light and warmth and light.
Mm.
What you
What
tend.
about the idea thing? The mind stuff?
Yes, it still be different because there's. Obviously, it's not about necessarily that there has to be a couple fronting every company and every ideas and every nation. It's more that thing. This isn't as concrete as this in terms of like a child. This needs to receive from the female archetype, the female wisdom. You see, and that could be through friends, just through the ethers. It doesn't have to be.
Does it have to be actually a woman? Because there are men that have, I call them honorary women.
Yes.
Because they're.
Yes, but still.
They're in touch with.
Still, they might be in touch in the same way women can be in touch with their masculine side, but
They're still men.
they're
But they're
still
still
men.
Makeup, yeah.
They still only have two ethers in their head. see, they still need to receive something.
So actually, maybe some of the men that I
So
think
it might be that they hang out with women,
yeah,
you know,
and
a
are
lot,
comfortable with
and
it.
then they're comfortable and they're receiving a lot
Yeah.
from the women,
Yeah.
from their ethers in the head, and that's coming into them.
Yeah.
You see, and they're very receptive to that, you know, because they're in touch with their feminine side. So therefore, they're going to hang out with women.
Yeah.
You see, so
And that could be because they've hung out with women. I mean, like my husband, he had very strong relationship with his mother, lots of
Yes.
sisters, and he had bigger relationships with women than he did with men, which is part of what I found so appealing about him, because he was so comfortable with women, you know, not in a
He never
predatory
denies
way
or.
no. So yeah, so that's going to be
respectful.
you know, good. Obviously, sometimes with that, men can be a bit emasculated if they're.
And
You
it's
know,
not that.
so yeah, I mean,
yeah, but yeah, I can see
can
that would
happen.
be,
But yes, it's all. There's always some exchange taking place. See, and even in sexuality, there's a loop. You know, there is this loop that goes, you know, this way. And in certain sexual practice, there's this thing of, you know, during sex, for the tongues to touch. So there is this loop that connects, and that there's a lot of energy coming, a certain thing from the female entering the male through the mouth, and then the male and obviously entering the female through the sacral. So it's a loop of energy. But it can be done on a non-physical level as well. And sometimes men can empower women, give a certain life force as friends, you know, and then women can give back to the man on another level. So there's a lot of exchange happening, but the general way is that the man gives here, the woman receives here, and of course also giving bad things, like all these paedophiles or lecherous men. Women feel invaded here, even if there's nothing physical, just by looking or, you know, having dirty thoughts. The women will receive that in her sacral, you see. And again, men, if a woman lusts after a man, it will feel it in the man's mind, you see. And then he'll get, this is why women always appeal to the man's senses, to the eyes, to the ears, to the nose, you see. So with perfume, so it's all about looks, you see, because all of that is food for the head, absorbs all of this. So you want to stimulate the man's head, you see, and then he'll kind of feel, well, there's a union, and then I want to, you know, move to.
But that's not true in the animal kingdom, though, is it?
The animal kingdom has different things going on, you know.
All animal
Males,
lives
that's
in more
not-
the rules of the moon, so it's more like a
Yes.
cycle, isn't
Exactly.
it?
It's a
Seasonal.
different,
The spring, it's more the seasonal. Rather
yes,
than
you get sometimes very
sexual
pretty,
drive.
you know, male birds, and the female bird is quite dull looking,
It's brown,
you know.
But it
So,
really is, isn't it? I mean, you get some
Peacocks.
lions, they've got that big mane, and the female's just like,
But female
often-
is the one who go to get the food.
yeah.
yeah, things can be reversed.
Do anything,
Provide.
don't do anything. She does everything.
She does everything.
But he
So where's the
protects.
receptivity there?
He protects.
There's no balance.
In case of danger, he protects.
Alright, okay.
There is this inverse thing sometimes with the animal and the human. It's an inverse
Anyway,
relations.
I'm sure Joanne finds this very interesting.